So we're finally here. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands has finally released. However, by the time we're recording this, my package hasn't came yet. It's kind of a shame. So in the meantime, I decided why don't I talk about one of my first ever Kirby games I've ever played, which was Kirby Superstar Ultra. This game arguably had the biggest impact in the Kirby series. It also had the most interesting copy moveset in the series by far, that strangely didn't appear until Return to Dreamland onwards. And also for this video, I'm going to be focusing on the DS remake of Kirby Superstar, which is the copy I grew up with. I think Kirby Superstar looks really nice on the Super Nintendo, but looking on the DS, it just looks amazing. For those who are unfamiliar with Kirby Superstar, instead of just one big game, it's more of a collection of small adventures. In fact, in the other regions, the game is called Kirby's Fun Pack. So in this video, I decided to divide the reviews into 8 small segments. With 7 of them are going to be talking about the game modes in the original game, while the final one is going to be talking about what's new in the remake. I'm going to be using footage for the remake, by the way, because over the nicer presentation. But with that all the way, let's get started. So in Spring Breeze, the game starts off with King Dedede stealing food from Dreamland. This game is a reimagining of the original Kirby's Dream Land on Game Boy. I'd say reimagining instead of just remake because there's a lot of things different from this game compared to the original Game Boy. Such as the fact that you have the copy abilities. In the original one, copy abilities weren't there because it didn't appear until Kirby's Adventure, the next game. But for the copy abilities in this game, it is a massive improvement from Kirby's Adventure. In Kirby's Adventure, most of the copy abilities only have one attack, while in Kirby Superstar, you have a variety of moves. Which means various moves are very useful in the air or on the ground, although the hammer is still the best move in the game. But what isn't original in this game, however, is that you can actually use your copy abilities to summon a helper. Now these guys are very useful in this game because when it comes to boss fights, they are really helpful by aiding you throughout the game. Not saying like this game is very hard, like this game is pretty short, it's about 4 levels long. Because again, the level design is a reimagining of the Game Boy game. After facing off King Dedede's minions, you'll face the king himself. Bang bang bong and done! And that was Spring Breeze. There's really not that much to say about it because it's more of an introduction to Kirby Superstar. Because once you complete Spring Breeze, the variety of Kirby Superstar opens up. So in Dynablade, the game opens up with Kirby napping underneath a tree until this majestic bird comes down and destroys the crops. Kirby is not going to put up with it, so he ventures off to stop Dynablade. Now in Dynablade, the game's level design is based on Kirby's Adventure, where it's very straightforward to beat a level, but if you have a certain copy ability, you can open up secrets to get rewards. They're also not afraid of tricking you into hitting a booby trap or something. The old phrase, curiosity kills the cat. You'll eventually reach the Dynablade's peak where Kirby, of course, defeats Dynablade. After you defeat Dynablade, it's revealed that she mostly did this so she can feed her little children. Kirby, feeling bad about this, decides to make it up by taking care of her little hatchlings so she can heal up. Eventually, once Dynablade heals up, she takes her children and Kirby watches as the sun sets. Overall, I thought Dynablade was really nice. I liked the level design and I liked the little twist ending. My only gripe is, however, is that I feel like they should have added like a boss or two to this game. Kinda like how what Spring Breeze did, where there was a boss in every level. But that's just a minor nitpick. Overall, I thought Dynablade was pretty solid. Now in Gourmet Race, this is when things get a bit more unique. Now with Spring Breeze and Dynablade, it's pretty much a typical Kirby adventure. But for the games onwards, they try to give a unique twist to them. And that is no different for Gourmet Race. So in Gourmet Race, it starts off with Kirby trying to climb a mountain to search for food. However, once he reaches the top, he exhausts himself. This is when King Dedede appears, where he declares a challenge for him. So in this game, you race King Dedede throughout the mountain to see who can eat the most and reach the goal in the end. Now here's a small tip of this game. When you're trying to race King Dedede, try to stay on the ground as much as you can, because when it comes to air controls, they nerfed it because of Kirby's exhaustion. Overall, I thought Gourmet Race was pretty solid, but my only gripe is that it is really short, even by this game's standards. You can beat this game under 4 minutes, which is a lot short compared to Spring Breeze or Dynablade, where you can beat it around 10 to 20 minutes. I feel like Gourmet Race should have had maybe 2 more levels to give this thing a bit more meat to it. So in the Great Cave Offensive, Kirby starts off by walking around the fields until he accidentally falls into this big giant pit. So now it's your job to travel throughout the cave to see if you can find a way out while collecting treasure on the way. So throughout the game, you have these small puzzles where if you complete them, you'll get a treasure chest. There's about 60 treasure pieces you can get throughout the game. However, if you don't want to do it, they're pretty much optional. I mean, hell, you can even skip through an entire section of the level. What I really like about this game is that I encourage exploration and using surroundings to get the treasure. There's also this strange section where the game really turns into an RPG battle. So if you really want an exploration kind of Kirby game, then the Great Cave Offensive is yours. So if you're familiar with Kirby, then Kirby's Adventure is when they first introduced to the new character, Mennonite. He was pretty much another King Deity minion who's trying to test Kirby on his skill. But in Kirby Superstar, this is when the character really kicked off and became a massive character in the series. And for Revenge of Mennonite, holy shit, I really love this one. So the story of Revenge of Mennonite is sick and tired of Dreamland's laziness, so he decided to take over Dreamland by using this giant battleship. Kirby uses his warp star to fly into the battleship before it takes off. This game is very fast-paced compared to the other ones. Like, you're storming throughout a battleship trying to make sure it doesn't take off. And this is when the presentation really kicks off, because I skimmed over the cutscenes throughout the game because they're really not important, but in this, it's really important. You're trying to storm into the halberd, but once it takes off, Kirby just gets yeeted out. Eventually, when you're storming through the island trying to figure out how to get back in, Dynablade reappears and helps you get back into the halberd. This game never slows down, especially due to the fact that you have a timer telling you you have a certain amount of time to go before it's too late. And every time you defeat a boss in this game, a part of the halberd blows up. And also, throughout the game, you have dialogue where Mennonite and this crew are just talking about his strategy to defeat Kirby. And once the battleship starts crashing down, they started panicking on what to do. And once the halberd completely gets destroyed, Mennonite decided to have one final match against Kirby. This is also a cool thing about Mennonite. Instead of just facing Kirby, he decided to wait until he grabs the sword. That way, they have an even sword match. But once you defeat him, he's not done, as once you're trying to get out of the halberd, Mennonite has one final attack against Kirby. And once you escape, you get this beautiful end credit scene where Kirby's just running off to the sunset. So yeah, Revenge of the Mennonite is my favorite game in Superstar. It just oozes a lot of great presentation and everything. But it's not the final game in this collection. So in Milky Way Wishes, it starts off with the sun and moon fighting up in the sky. This becomes a massive issue to the people in Dreamland since they cannot sleep with them fighting. Eventually, this mysterious jester named Marx decides to have Kirby go out into space to find the stars so they can summon Nova. With the Nova, they are able to make a wish to make the sun and moon stop fighting so peace can be in Dreamland again. Now when you start the gameplay is a lot different compared to the other ones, because in this game, Kirby cannot copy people by inhaling them. So instead, copy abilities are more of a collectible. Once you find one, you can have that copy ability throughout the entire game. This is honestly an interesting spin on the whole copy abilities. Because if you have that certain copy ability, you can have a certain partner throughout the entire game. Amao dies, you can just respawn him instantly. Even selecting levels is a little different because you can choose any level you want in any order. This kind of reminds me of a Crash Bandicoot game where you can choose any level you want. There's even harder versions of regular enemies throughout the game. Anyway, so once you collect all the stars from the planets, Kirby is able to summon Nova. Kirby was about to make the wish, but Marx intervenes and makes a wish where he wants to control Dreamland. Marx revealed that he made the Sun and Moon fight, so Kirby had an excuse to summon Nova. And his plan worked because once he wished to become powerful, he transformed into this. He then rushes to take over the world, leaving Kirby to float in space. But luckily, with the power of the stars, Kirby was able to summon a spaceship. He then flies all the way back to planet Popstar, where he reaches into Nova's core. Eventually, once you've destroyed the heart, Kirby rushes down to planet Popstar to stop Marx once and for all. This is a great way to end this game, because this boss fight has full tension. And I'll be honest, Marx really scared me when I was little, because look at this thing! And once you defeat Marx, he blasts off into Nova, and then they both explode. And so, once everything is done, Kirby just went back to his home to take a nap. And that's the conclusion of Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo. But, we're not done yet. So I just said that Milky Way Wishes was the conclusion of Superstar for Super Nintendo. But in the DS remake, they added a few more games to it. The Revenge of the King. It's pretty much a reimagining of Spring Breeze, which was a reimagining of the original Dreamland game. This is pretty much a reimagining of the original hard mode in Dreamland, with harder bosses and everything. But there's a twist in the ending. In the original Spring Breeze, you're traveling throughout most of the same areas from the original Dreamland, but one of the bosses were missing. And that boss was Kabula. He was pretty much Deity's airman trying to protect the castle from the outside. And I kind of find it cruel that you were using the same spaceship that you used in Milky Way Wishes to fight Kabula. And once you've head inside, it's pretty much a mixture of Spring Breeze and Revenge of the Mennonite. Just like in Revenge of Mennonite, King Dedede throughout the level will talk to his minions on their next strategy to defeat Kirby. This is also the game that debuts one of the main characters in the modern Kirby games, Bandana Waddle Dee. He technically first appeared in the SNES version during a minigame Megaton Punch, but in this game he's a lot more evolved. And also what I really like is that after Kirby defeats most of the enemies throughout the castle, he knows he couldn't stand a chance. And so King Dedede decides to spare him and he doesn't have to fight Kirby, but he does it anyway. And now we're at the final battle. And also, just like Revenge of Mennonite, King Dedede offers Kirby a hammer so they can have an even match. And I'll just say this real quick. This is the first game where I introduced the Masked Dedede theme song. And honestly, that is my favorite boss theme in any Kirby game, period. No other boss fight has ever topped the energetic you get from the Masked Dedede. And in Kirby's Triple Deluxe with that remix, holy shit, those trumpets! And so once you defeat King Dedede for the final time, he just walks through the sunset with his army of Waddle Dees. Honestly, I find it really adorable that his army of Waddle Dees just come with him to comfort him. Honestly, it's really cool that they added extra content throughout the game. Like, they could have just remade the original games and that's it, but no, they added a lot more to it. And I haven't even mentioned the final game in this remake, Meta Nightmare Ultra, where you play through the entire game as Mennonite, and it is really fun and energetic. He just slices through bosses and everything within seconds. It was really fun to replay through the game, but with a twist. And this is not even topping the extra stuff you have in this game, like the arena, which is pretty much a boss rush. And I'm not even talking about the minigames in this game collection. The best way to describe Kirby Superstar is that it is full of variety. Like, the game constantly changes every time you play a different game. And with the DS remake, they just added more variety to it. And I haven't even talked about the presentation because this game is very gorgeous on the DS. And I already gushed about the Masked Dedede theme song, but the music in this game is very catchy as hell, like the main theme song in Revenge of Mennonite, and sometimes it can be atmospheric like in the Great Cave Offensive. The best way I can describe Kirby Superstar is that it's a really well-made game, and I think the variety part of this game is the best part about it. Because throughout the game, you're traveling throughout the entirety of Dreamland but in different stories. Or in some cases, very different level design and how you play through a Kirby game. And for the remake on DS as a remake itself, it is probably one of the best remakes I can ever think of. Right next to stuff like Metroid Zero Mission or Ocarina of Time 3D. It kept what made the original Superstar great and refined it to near perfection. And to top it all off, they added more modes and everything. If you haven't played this game, it's available on Nintendo Switch Online, though I highly recommend trying to get the DS version of this game because it is the definitive way to play Kirby Superstar. But that'll do for today, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye!